Thank you for tuning in to Serendipity with Sheila, the podcast that helps you align your mission with your passion. As a universal master energy healer, Sheila can help you awaken and align with your true self so you can live the purposeful life you were made for. Let's get started.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Serendipity with Sheila, and I am your host, Reverend Sheila B. Tillich. And today I have a real treat for you. I have Dr. Teon Kowalyk, who is a chiropractor, and he has an amazing journey about how he shares his passion with who he is and what he does. He actually helps people, all right, live a more integrative health in their life. And I absolutely am so excited to have him here. Welcome, Teon.
Great being here. I'm excited. This is
All right.
first time that I've done something. Like I said, I was listening to many podcasts over years, and it's fun to actually start doing more of them actually myself. This is exciting.
All right. Right. Welcome. All right. So I'm going to do a little bio. All right. Teon Kowalyk is a doctor of chiropractic medicine and a graduate from the prestigious Palmer School of Chiropractic in Iowa. His practice, Ontario Family Chiropractic, is located in his Integrated Health Center in Ontario, New York. Ontario, New York is very close to me, and I live about 20 minutes away from where he is, so it's very, very convenient for me. So, Teon, when I first went to your office, your practice, I seen something on the wall, and I want to read it because it really impressed me. It says, I love the saying of it. It says, medicine is about disease and what makes people die. Chiropractic is about life and what makes people live. And that's by B.J. Palmer.
Correct.
That really hit me because there's so much more to medicine than just basic Western medicine. There's Eastern medicine and integrative medicine. And I love it is because your practice is about integrative health.
Correct.
So, right. So welcome again. So I would like you to share a little bit more with my listeners about you. All right, about your journey and what led you to your career. So, Teon, you've got the floor.
Perfect.
Very comfortable here. We're just kind of chatting. So, what got you here?
It's interesting. Like I was thinking back about my journey, especially. Well, it's kind of a book ending to the story. I kind of started with it. Just a couple of weeks ago, I went up to my undergrad. My undergrad was kinesiology, or exercise phys was my undergrad, and found out a few months ago that our rugby team I was playing on was inducted in the Sports Hall of Fame. So it was the first rugby team at that school at University of Western Ontario to do that. And
so you're Canadian, huh?
Yes, I'm Canadian. So, but I'll just kind of start with that. But I just seen these guys. I haven't seen my friends or my teammates in 25 years, and realistically, I probably never would have seen them ever again if it wasn't for this Hall of Fame induction. But driving there with my girls and spending time at seeing my alma mater and seeing homecoming and seeing all the students. And then it was and then to see my teammates that were my family at the time. That was before, kids and responsibilities. It was just about rugby training and going to school and learning. But it gave me a lot of time to reflect. So actually the fact that this is coming now is amazing because I'll start from the beginning where both grandparents, both of my families originally from Ukraine. And they had a crazy, like what they went through to give me the opportunities that I have now. Like I'm so grateful for it. I can't even believe it. And, talking to my cousin, he had more detail of my grandparents, but my grandfather's side, so my dad's parents, my grandfather was an orphan because Russia came in at the time, stole the grains, and so his parents died of starvation. He made it through as an orphan.
Wow.
My grandmother was a prisoner of war during World War II. She was like, making bombs for Allied bombers. And she tells the story of where she was in a bomb factory in Germany, as a prisoner of war. And a bomb actually came through the building, killed some of her friends, but it was a dud and never blew up. So she survived that. My grandfather was stealing potatoes to keep my grandmother alive. They survived that. And both my parents were born in Germany. Like my uncle and my dad were born in Germany. My mother's side didn't have it any easier. When they lost everything in Ukraine after World War II, they went to Venezuela. So my mom and my aunt were actually born in Venezuela. My grandmother and my grandfather, tried to start a family there to learn a different language. My grandfather fell off a scaffolding, so he was working at a construction company. I guess he was one of the foremen. So he ended up dying. So my grandmother ended up having to move from Venezuela to Canada with a $4,000 life insurance check, 2 young girls, learn another language. And so Canada was sponsoring a lot of immigrants from Ukraine at the time. And so they ended up meeting in Northern Ontario, where my grandfather was building a hydro dam. And so they met in Northern Ontario, ended up moving to Hamilton. And that, like, what they went through to, like, I guess my foundation, my career, and my everything I have right now is based on them taking an opportunity to come to Canada. And he worked at a steel plant, and that was amazing. Like, I didn't appreciate that as a child, obviously, but then as I'm growing up, I'm looking back to what my grandparents went through, and then gave my dad and my mom both a university education. And my dad was huge into learning. So my dad is an entomologist, so he worked for Ontario Hydro in Canada. He was a field biologist, so he was always working with species and seeing how different terrain affected the animals. So he, even back in the late 80s, early 90s, he was doing a lot of research with the zebra mussels and Lake Ontario, and after going into the nuclear dams or the nuclear power plants, and how more or less biology and ecosystem is everything. Everything in the health of our environment is everything. And so even there's times in Lake Ontario, like many years, or Lake Erie, when it was so polluted that the eggs of the birds and things like that were starting to not reproduce because the egg shells were getting so thin. And an analogy I learned later on is, in order to be healthy, you have to eat well, think well, move well, and really it's tied to your species type. So
exactly.
And so to fix up the bird situation, to fix it wouldn't be to put up little bird hospitals and like a little vet sanctuaries along the Lake Ontario to take care of these sick birds. To fix it was to clean up the environment. And once they cleaned up the environment with the water and good nutrition, then the biology was able to grow again. So everything in life is always about getting back to the foundation of your species type and living congruently with that. And so growing up and collecting butterflies, and my father was so into learning that I remember watching the PBS documentaries like Nova and those space channels, and learning about astronomy. And the cool story, another Serendipity event, was he actually met Carl Sagan when the Cosmos series came out in the early 80s, and he actually met Carl Sagan at a U of T event, and he has I have a hand-signed autographed book from Carl Sagan with, it sounds like, to Mark and Teon look up to the stars or reach for the future. And so I just very thankful for it. My father introduced me to like the basic sciences of how the universe works. And I realized now we all do come from stars. Like, we are stardust.
You're talking to the star lady here.
Yes. So like, the more I understand how we ever got to this point over the eons of time, it's not through better medicine or better drugs or better technology. It's how we evolve over time. We're always trying to make ourselves better. And
are you ready to expand your healing? Visit SheilaTillich.com/events to find an online or in-person event near you. That's SheilaTillich.com/events. Now back to the episode.
How I got into the chiropractic field was, both grandparents always came over. We always grew up with our own gardens. Like, my mom grew up with a little garden when she grew up near Toronto. My grandma always had a garden. We always had gardens growing up. My grandfather always come by. So we always grew up whole foods, like cooked meals. Both my parents were super supportive of everything I did. They were always together for me, supported me with any sporting events. But medicine was never part of our life. It's not like we were against medicine, but we never needed it, because as a family, we were always eating holistically to what we needed to be. And I can even tell the story of my grandfather, where he used to smoke his own, he'd roll his own Expert Ace cigarettes, and roll his own cigarettes and have his coffee. And he did that from, I guess, probably 16, 17 years old until his final death. But he was always at peak health because he moved, he ate clean foods, supported family, and he never took medications for anything. So he lived till his early 80s. He ended up dying of prostate cancer, just because he didn't want to go to a doctor and even address it. So he just ignored it. Yeah. But as a family, I remember my both grandparents always giving me cod liver oil, and just I didn't think that was anything weird until I kind of went into high school and then went to university. Like, a lot of people didn't have my upbringing. A lot of people are so based on medicine. Yeah. So but I was we won this, provincial championship in high school, and thankfully I had a great rugby coach that kind of steered me to continue to play rugby instead of going to football. And then I ended up going to undergrad. Didn't know what I wanted to do, so I went to pre-med for exercise phys, and I didn't know if I wanted to be a gym teacher / biology teacher. I wanted to teach in some way. I was thinking orthopedic surgeon. From football, I had knee surgery done. From racing motocross, I dislocated my elbow. I've had a couple broken noses, probably 50 stitches in my head, multiple concussions. Like, I've had so much abuse to my body, but thankfully I was always able to recover and heal. Never need major crisis care besides surgeries. So I was thinking orthopedic surgeon or a firefighter. So that was my 3 things going into university, not knowing what I wanted to do. But so then I guess serendipitous event was when I was on the second year of university. We went to Ireland, and I remember tackling a guy. I hit my head into the ground, heard like a creak in my neck. And I've had some traumas, and I've actually fractured my thoracic spine from racing dirt bikes. So I was like, oh, it's another, trauma to help recover from. It was the final game of the tour. We went back to Canada, and it wasn't until about 2 months later I started getting these reoccurring brutal migraines. I've never had a migraine in my life. So I was like, so from never having any symptoms to having migraines so bad that I couldn't go to class. I was throwing up almost every day. I was losing weight. And then, they realized it was from, the trainers realized it was probably from a neck injury. So I went to the university hospital, the MRI, CT scans. They're like, everything's normal, there's no brain bleeding. We don't know what's going on, but obviously you're having symptoms. So they're going to prescribe me the Imitrex, the Ralpax, the Zomig, all these prescription migraine meds. They obviously asked, if I'm feeling down. I was like, yeah, of course I'm down. I can't go to class, can't play rugby. I'm losing weight. Like, my whole life was kind of like the rug was pulled up from under my feet, because everything all my values in my life was training, team sports, and learning. I couldn't do any of those. So of course they wanted to try to put me on antidepressants, which I was like, I know what I'm depressed for. The antidepressants aren't going to fix me.
Yeah.
They tried to even recommend maybe Botox injections in my head to numb the pain, and everything was about treating the symptom. None of it was working. Didn't know what's going on. And when I mentioned the rugby again, I remember one of the doctors almost like scoffed at me, like, well, you'll never be playing rugby again. Like, there's no, and I was like, so the bedside manner was not very supportive ever, but they couldn't fix me. And it was a classmate of mine whose dad was a chiropractor. And at this point, I've never been a chiropractor before. And he said, oh, you should go check out this NHL chiropractor. He's in about 45 minutes away, but he can probably help you out. And I was like, well, nothing to lose at this point. I didn't know anything about chiropractic. I was as an athletic therapist and PT, I didn't, never been adjusted though.
Yeah.
And I went there, took x-rays. He found my issue in my upper neck, my atlas bone was shifted. And I mentioned him, why didn't anyone else mention this? He's like, well, they're just not trained to look for that.
Exactly.
And after a couple of weeks, literally about a handful of adjustments, my migraines were gone. And I felt amazing again. I was like, what's to this? He's like, well, we found the cause. And I said, do you think I'll be able to play sports again? He's like, oh, for sure. There's no reason. Like, once your body's aligned well and you're running the way you should, you just continue doing what you're doing. So then I worked as an exercise physiologist at a big health club in Toronto area. So after 4 years, went back home, trying to figure out where I wanted to go to school. And I was looking at a school in Toronto or Montreal. I even drove to Chicago to check out a chiropractic school there. And then one of the chiropractors working in the health club, he's like, well, I went to school in Atlanta down at Life, and actually heard they have a rugby team. I was like, really? This is kind of pre-internet. This was like 99. It wasn't easy to do research back then besides catalogs. And I called up to the school, talked to the rugby coach, and he's like, oh, it sounds like you have a good background. Why don't you just drive down and we'll talk. So I just picked up in my 86 blue Safari minivan. I think I had like 300,000 kilometers on it. So maybe 200,000 miles.
I love it. I love it when we talk about, our past and, what was important that time. It's like, oh, but that is how I relate. My first car was a VW Bug, but yeah. It's a great car. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I remember hanging out with my friends, partying, and saying, hey, I'm going to go to school the next day. Got up early, 16-hour drive to Atlanta from Burlington, Ontario. I remember the car was so the minivan was so beat up. I remember the steering wheel shaking on the highway the whole way down for 16 hours. I pulled it all off, talked to the coach. And he's like, well, if you want to start, I could get you in for the next trimester, like literally next month. So I was like, all right, I'm in. So I went back home, picked everything up, and moved to the US. And I was actually ended up with almost a full ride rugby scholarship in Atlanta, went to South Africa, and then ended up transferring to school in Iowa because they're actually offered about full tuition ride. And then ended up graduating from Palmer College in Iowa, which is like the original chiropractic school. So that was the Fountainhead School. And that's where the friendships and everyone, all the teammates that were all kind of chiropractic students, that was a unique experience because we're all had the same philosophy of mindset. We'd adjust, we have a trainer that was adjusting us in the way we're eating. And we ended up winning national championships. We were the top rugby team in Atlanta. We were actually national champs for the Super League, went to Palmer. And then, so all that was due to an injury from rugby that got me into the chiropractic field because, and then BJ Palmer, his philosophy was, you eat well. Well, my philosophy in the clinic is eat well, think well, move well. But the Green Books, the chiropractic philosophy from the early 1900s was all disease comes from thoughts. So the toxins from negative thoughts, negative toxins, traumas. So thoughts, traumas, toxins. So what you put in your head is what he said that was first. So the thoughts and your health that's the biggest aspect. And then traumas could be falls, traumas, misalignments, injuries. And then chemical stresses would be the food we put in our body, the air we breathe, and all those things. So thoughts, traumas, toxins, the physical, mental, and emotional side is everything. So it's like I could go on, but it's just neat how I ended up graduating there. Then I went to Northeast PA, worked for a clinic, and that's where I met my wife. And then we ended up in Ontario, New York. And I remember trying to set up my own clinic somewhere. And then near Rochester, I have a friend of mine that I played rugby with. He grew up on the other side of town near Hilton, and his wife's from Canada. He's like, I'll come to the Rochester area. And then I ended up finding a place in Ontario, New York. And I was like, I'm from Ontario, Canada. I didn't know there was an Ontario, New York. But so I ended up taking over a clinic back in 2008. And then after a few years of renting out a small space, I took over from a previous chiropractor. We bought a building 10 years ago, like a 5,000 square foot building. And then we been expanding from there. So we got the integrated health center turned into the chiropractic, laser, spinal decompression. And then we eventually, when the tenants left, we opened up the functional fitness gym next door, which is Eupraxia. And that's a franchise of one of my best friends from Palmer in Iowa. So a guy, he wrestled at Wisconsin, Dr. Steve Sizz. So I became a franchise of one of his programs. And
I really love it is because when I found you, and I've been coming to you for a couple months now, and the serendipity part about it, I've been going to chiropractor for about 3 or 4 years, and a lot of my own life issues were getting in the way, and I knew that I needed to do more. And I've always taken responsibility for my body and my life. Mm-hmm. And but as the years have gone by and the mileage is mileage on my body, I'm not going to say AGE. Correct, I'm going to say the mileage is that I knew, a lot of things need to be worked on. And what I liked about you is immediately when I came, you were very thorough. You went with x-rays and you explained everything to me and stuff like that. And we immediately started working on that. And I have just seen so much improvement in my life, from being able to move better and also sleep better, and to be able to continue on my life in a healthier manner, And I like what you started talking about, the thought process and all the things that go into being healthy, and you talked about the root cause. Get to the root cause. What is causing that? That's why I liked when you showed me these things that were happening with my body with the x-rays that you took, it's the root cause of the stuff. And it lines up with why my body wasn't working. And then what can help it, how I can help it. And I love, you have your gym, you have, your nutrition program, you have so much of your practice that's integrative. It's just not, go in for adjustments and that's it. You've got to take responsibility for your life.
And I'm not against Western medicine for emergency care. Like I remember coming back, very painful and probably most painful experience of all the things I've had. I had a kidney stone back in 2003. I came back and then I ended up having to, go to the hospital a couple of times and they're able to blast it out and I had to get surgery to pull it out. Like I'm not, I've had broken, but we need emergency Western care is awesome, but we need prevention care, or we need true well, and that's all lifestyle. 80% of the 2.7
Exactly.
trillion we spent is due to, but we dig in our grave with our own fork and spoon. We're not moving enough, and we're not living congruent to our species type. Like a koala in the woods, a koala cannot live like we do. They need their eucalyptus, and they have their, it's almost like a lion in captivity is going to not be optimal health, but if they're out in savannah, they are. So we have to be congruent to what we, oh, I got a puppy that,
Okay.
I got to put a quick pause on. This is getting a little crazy.
Okay. I love it. I love reality. This is real life, people. We just deal with what we need to deal with.
Monthly group healing sessions are now available on sheilatillich.com/events. These group healing sessions take place on the first Tuesday of every month and include guided group healing and/or exercises depending on the need of the group. Because this is a more intimate group, it is developed based on the needs of the group during the session. This is to support us as we move through this ascension process and we are experiencing similar things at the same time. To register for the next monthly group healing sessions, please visit our event page, sheilatillich.com/events. Thank you for listening. Now back to the episode.
All
Sorry
right.
about that. I got my family
Sorry.
gone, so this is Foster. And maybe if I keep him in the same room, he'll be happier. So,
Okay, that sounds good.
but
Well, I love it when, where's the gaps in your patient care? First of all, Western medicine, you got to have both. Exactly. It's about preventative. I like the preventative stuff. So in your practice, where's the gaps for you? Where you're meaning more on the inner work that the client needs to do.
yeah, I guess like I find the biggest gap is that most patients don't have any really understanding on what it takes to be healthy. Like it's in our society now, we've been, through commercialization, like there's so much confusion, there's so much information about like high fat, low fat diets, or, like you find all the shelves are filled with prepackaged, pre-made food. And life has become so easy where you can just go on Grubhub and send food to yourself. So, but we've gone away from, even making your own home cooked meals, like the crock pot, and just actually preparing things in advance and being together as a family. I know so actually I could go in detail, like when I met my wife at the chiropractic clinic, I took care of her parents and grandparents first. And when she actually came in, she just kind of came back from a summer trip, and that was the first time I met her. And so she already grew up holistically, and that's one of the big things that we love: nature, going outdoors. And we decide when we do have kids, we want to have a home birth. So I remember even with my own child, with Sophia, she was 11 now. We had her in our own house. We had 2 midwives.
Oh,
I remember
that's
I was seeing patients. It was like a Thursday morning, and all of a sudden, I knew she was 2 weeks overdue, but she's still working out every day at the Y. She had a big belly, and she's doing her stuff on it. And actually, prior to that, we probably took 2 or 3 months of Bradley method birthing classes. So it's all about how to naturally have a baby as healthy as possible. So of course, if we're under risk, we would have maybe gone to the hospital, but everything was so healthy. And with the Bradley method, we understand how natural pregnancy works. And when it came time, I remember I rushed home from seeing patients, and my midwives were there at probably about 8 o'clock at night. So we're just kind of letting her go through it. And by 5 in the morning, we're in our own house. We had a mattress, and I delivered and caught my own baby right in my own house. And then the midwives are there to help with the transition. But I felt like that was the most powerful kind of intimate experience you could have with your wife or your child. When even prior to us having kids, we ate perfectly, never drank, all through like perfect nutrition, all through the whole pregnancy, rest, and catching my own baby at my own house, and neither of our kids have ever been to a pediatrician besides just yearly checkups to go to school and things like that. But that was the most mind-blowing experience to actually see my baby coming into my hands and seeing the eyes open up first time and seeing her look at me. It made me realize that we didn't need anything besides a healthy lifestyle to have a healthy baby. And then we had a second girl later on as well. I'm
just smiling is because I went to nursing school to be a nurse midwife. And when I had my children, all right, I wanted a water birth. And at that time in the 70s, that really wasn't cool to do, you know, and that
It's kind of interesting you say that, because we had a big water tub, and then during the whole 12-hour ordeal, somehow like one of the midwives pulled the plug by accident or knocked it out. So then the tub got really cold. So then by the time she was ready to deliver, she's like, oh, the water's cold. It's like, all right, we're going to do it on all fours then. So
that's great, right?
That's
Yeah.
cool that you're into that.
I absolutely love it, how you've integrated your whole life, you know, with this, the healthy stuff, you know, holistic and as pain-free as possible, you know, and I absolutely love it. And that's kind of my story, is what led me to be a recovery metaphysician and the things that I do. You know, it's through my own life experiences and own challenges too.
Correct.
So yeah, exactly. So, you know, as a metaphysical practitioner, all right, my practice is more holistic. How can you deal with things in your life in a different manner, more holistically, you know? So I love what I do. And as a recovery metaphysician, I deal with a lot of different things, not just people that need addiction help, but people with changes in their life, more holistic changes, more healthier, more preventative, and to actually help them get to the root cause. You know, what's causing your pain? What do you want to change in your life? Where do you feel stuck? So for my being a recovery metaphysician, where do you think, you know, it can benefit your patients? And the serendipity with us coming together is no coincidence at all. You know,
no, it's when you think, even the BJ Palmer, the chiropractic philosophy has always been about innate intelligence. You know, the ability,
exactly.
Your body, your brain, your central nervous system has the core ability to reproduce and be healthy, and then the spinal column running through it. If there's nerve pressures, it's not going to send signals, and that could compromise things. That's where people get the neuropathies or sciatic pain or headaches, and then. But a lot of part of it is also just having the mindset to be open to those kind of things, to realize it, because you almost have to untrain the last 100 years of what we think health is.
Well, that's yeah. And when I talk about limitations, what's limiting you? You know, your belief system in which you've been trained.
Belief system
is
everything. So when you're talking about the gap, I think the gap is to bridge the person from my body needs help from outside. If I have a symptom, it's because I'm
the magic pill.
Yeah, I need the magic pill or magic surgery, or you know, if I'm overweight by 50 pounds, it must mean because I must need gastric bypass, or
it's my hereditary. I got it from my parents. They're fat, you know, or you know, diabetic. My parents are diabetic, so I'm gonna get diabetes. No,
and that's, I think that we talked about this previously about like Bruce Lipton and the biology of belief,
yeah.
And actually had a chance to meet him in Palmer back in 2003 when he was getting going, and one of my other mentors, Dr. James Chestnut, he's also taken it from the species type, and then they just bonded together, and it's all about epigenetics. So the above
bingo, epigenetics, the environment around the cell, the environment around the person, their life. What are they putting into their bodies? How are they living their
So that we can't change our gene. Like if you have the genes for blue eyes, and so our makeup's there, but it's almost like the analogy.
You can change the thought process. You can change the way you think about it.
There's a recipe book, and then you could pick different recipes from that book depending on what's going on in the environment.
Exactly.
So
choices.
We have the ability to be healthy, but we just got to make the epigenetic choices. Just because your parents have it, and that's what a lot of times Western medicine, they'll take a history. Oh, both your parents have heart disease. Oh, that's not good for you. It's like really heart disease and diabetes. That's only been an issue in the last really 100 years. When you're talking thousands of years prior, that we've had the ability to be genetically healthy. It's only when we're messing things up with our current lifestyle that's having all these issues.
And I love when you talked about the innate, is because I'm also a heart math licensed coach, and heart math is about your innate intelligence going into your heart center and connecting with your brain, and actually building resilience against stress and trauma. And learning that you can do this by going with inside your innate ability, your own physical and emotional, spiritual ability to change and to be healthier. So I love being a heart math coach, of making the connection of the innate. Your body knows what to do. You know?
Yeah, it's a stress response. If you're under a lot of stress, physical, mental, emotional stress is
exactly.
You're going to get elevated cholesterol. You're going to get elevated heart rate. Your body's. It's almost like if you're the analogy of if you see a tiger in a jungle, like at that point, you don't care about healing per se. Your goal is a fight or flight. So a fight or flight response is those things to get you out of that situation. But then once you're out of that situation, that's when you should put on the brakes, and that's the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest, digest, repair. And that's why in our society today, we're so sympathetic dominant. We're not getting into the rest, digest, repair phase. And then that's why we're getting these chronic diseases. And then we're told, hey, we need more medicine, more surgeries, which is going to add more chemical stresses to the body, which is going to hinder your healing response. And then you might feel better short term. You might be treating symptoms, but ultimately you're just kind of sweeping the dirt under the rug, and then eventually you can't get away from it. And that's why we're spending more on healthcare than any other country in the world, and we're getting the worst results. It's not that we don't have caring doctors. It's just the fact that our whole system is upside down. We're addressing it from the cost of what all these expensive surgeries and drugs, but that's never going to fix the cause, which is our lifestyles.
Exactly. Me as a recovery metaphysician, what I try to help people with is realize that they are a priority in their life, to make themselves a priority. And society is always looked at, oh, I can't look at myself, you're being selfish type thing. But no, it's making choices for you, making it really important for you. What do you need to do? Is because it affects every area of your life, just like what you talked about, the stress causing diabetes and causing heart disease. It's like, what is it doing to you? To get people to look at, they have choices, and it's your choices which you need to look at, and make yourself a priority to look at those choices. And that's what the Great Awakening is happening now for people, is understanding that, hey, I can do different now, and I can take care of my body without feeling the guilt, without, but a lot of them, they come into play, oh, insurances don't cover this, I don't have the money. They use excuses, and a lot of it is their own inner work that needs to be done. Their own self-esteem, the lack of, and what they've been taught, and so I love talking about stuff like this with other professionals that, in their practice, they have it head on with their patients all the time, so how does that work for you? I know for me, it's very frustrating sometimes, when what can help them, of course. That's why we're here.
Yeah, that is.
It's their choices, right?
It's, I guess, the first 10 years of my career. Like, many times I was losing sleep at night. I used to do health talks, classes, 45 minutes, and more or less I'd try to get them to drink from a fire hose of information. It's almost, you realize someone's at this level 1 or 2, and I'm trying to get them to level 8 or 9, and it'll get them. If my level is 8 or 9 or 10, I'm trying to get them to where I am at, and I realize that's not going to happen. And it's more or less, we're trying to meet patients now, get them what they want, which is get out of pain, and try to educate them on what they can have. It's almost like when they're in pain, that's their priority. You want to get out of pain, and the fact that they're coming to see me and try to fix the cause and avoid drugs and surgery, I'm very thankful for that. But then the frustration is, once they're out of pain, they're like, all right, good, I'll come back when I'm in pain. But it's like, okay, wait a second, instead of waiting until you have pain, or waiting until you have a heart attack, or that diagnosis of a chronic life-threatening disease, it's like, what are you going to do to make yourself better? It's like if someone gave you $1 million racehorse, and you're like, all right, you know what, I want to win some money with this horse. You're not going to be giving it Doritos and making sure, alcohol and not drinking. It's like, you're going to treat that $1 million racehorse like it should be treated for it can win its events. Yet the way we treat ourselves are like, we're like garbage cans. We just put in whatever we can. We don't think about our meals. We don't think about the sleep, or how everything we're doing can impact our life long term. And I'm not expecting perfection, but at the same time, we should make more of a priority into just living congruently with what our species needs. We need love and support from family. We need daily movement, exercise. We can't be sitting all day. We can't be on a phone comparing ourselves, and always, we need some quiet time as well. That's a meditative, this vitamin nature. We just took our kids into Lake Placid this past weekend, and I'm going to make a post about it. The best thing for our kids and our families is get outside, walk. If you look at the philosophers from the Greek philosophers, a lot of times they're taught classes, the philosophy classes, or to be walking around, and the students be following the professor. They're walking and learning and teaching, because movement, and instead of being in the class, sitting down, stuffy room, and all these, it should be a fun and enjoyable process. Like, learning should be natural. It should be something we want to do, and health should be along those same pathways. But so many times we've filled our lives with a lot of filler and garbage, really, that now, again, we just got to pull away from that stuff and get to the congruently with what we need to be healthy. And that's the eat well, think
Exactly.
well, move well. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In my practice as a practitioner, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy. What does that mean? And a lot of it has to do with fear. A lot of them don't want to, or they don't know how, because they've always done a
correct.
certain thing.
Yeah,
And
that thought process, the thought thinking, the negative thinking and the stinking thinking is
exactly.
it just brings us down, and we tend to be our harshest critics. Like I'm the same way. I've always gone to seminars, my wife and I traveling and trying to improve ourselves, but
Yeah.
I internally say things to myself that I would never say to my child or anyone else.
Bingo.
But I would rip myself apart, like even throughout my entire career. Like I've always was super hard on myself and always compare myself to those people that I think have more.
Yeah.
And somehow I feel
so
like
the root cause, where did it come from? So
yeah,
that's what I like to take a look at, and to realize is that you don't have to live in the limiting beliefs, what you were taught. You can think outside of the box. I say,
correct.
You mean I can step outside of the box? I can do something different? Yeah, you can, but you still need to take the responsibility and do it.
And there's a lot of benefit, and you get a lot of enjoyment in take those responsibilities and overcoming challenges. Like life should not be easy.
Wonderful.
Nothing about life's easy, but I just listened to another analogy of like Ray Dalio. He's one of these investment guys, but he's talking about how you don't want life you want to cross the jungle. You don't want to just be kind of comfort in the entire life and just kind of live in mediocrity. And then when it's time to, your final days on this planet, you look back and you didn't really accomplish or do anything hard. You didn't have any struggles. Like, of course, you're going to have struggles, but you want to get through that jungle. You want to overcome things. You want to make yourself physically stronger, mentally stronger, just emotionally more in tune with everyone. Just appreciate what you have, appreciate your family, and just you realize we're all in this together. Like we are not just our own family, but that's why I'm trying to make a bigger impact in my community with because everyone knows how to join a gym, but I wanted a group functional fitness class. So you have an instructor telling you, guiding you, you're working out with 12 or 15 other people that are showing up. Like I was just there at 6 a.m. this morning, everyone's smiling, everyone knows we're there together, and then we do go our separate ways. But that's this social network and working out together. That's we've lost that as a family. If you look at Native Americans or any cultures, it was always a society or the group of 20 or 30 or 50 people that raised families together, helped each other together.
Exactly.
We've lost that. And so even though we're connected through phones and technology, we're not connected at all together.
The interpersonal connection.
Like the hands-on, face-to-face stuff. That's where you get the enjoyment. That's where you get everything in life is from that.
Exactly. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this podcast. I really have. And I am just so grateful, Teon, that I have been able to use you as my chiropractor, but also to work with you,
Well, I'm grateful I'm super thankful that we're talking about
serendipity.
This,
There's no coincidence.
It's amazing how, and there's so many things, so many layers of things we could get into. And it's just like, this is just amazing that at least we're, again, trying to get people to understand that they have the ability to be healthy, and it's all about your mindset and break through those barriers, overcome those fears, see what's going on with your spine nerve system, look at your diet, look at your body movements, and just be functional. But I'm very grateful for being part of this as well. Like I hope I can share more one time, but this is awesome. Great.
Absolutely. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and I want to thank you for sharing your life story with us and the serendipity part of your life, your mission, your integrative medicine, what you do, and how you live your life. And I'm just so grateful for you, Teon. So thank you very much for coming and sharing with my listeners.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye now.
Take care.
Are you looking for tools, jewelry, meditations, and merch to remind you to stay in tune and in the present? Make sure you stop by SheilaTillich.com/store, and while you're there, visit SheilaTillich.com/subscribe to get a discount code for a free meditation from the store.